Brandon Benefield, Gerard Bonner, and Diana Michelle.
What's up, everybody? It's that time of the week. It's Friday. You know what that means. It's time for the SHW podcast. This is our wrestling. I'm B-Double Brandon Benfield alongside the great Gerard Bonner and the beautiful Diana Michelle. We are V3, and we are back to recap an incredible show that was SHW51 last Friday. And we're going to run through this card, but my goodness, I'm still buzzing from the event. How about you guys? How's your week going? Are you still feeling the excitement that we were feeling at the end of the show?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. There was so much that happened. Are we going to be able to get it all?
We'll try.
We're going to try.
Wow.
This is why we tell you can't miss a show, because even with the recap we're about to give you, it still can't cover all that happened, all of our emotions, the highs, the lows, the in-betweens. I mean, we might have to start telling you don't eat before you come to the show, because it's literally like a roller coaster. You're going to go up and down, and you're going to feel all kinds of ways. So that was SHW 51 for sure.
You know, the signs, to me, the signs of a great wrestling show are just like you said, GB, those emotional roller coaster shows. And, you know, we have a lot of those here in SHW, but sometimes it's a lot more on the disappointment side. You're upset, you're mad. Sometimes it's more on the excited side. Sometimes it's more on the emotional, teary-eyed side. And this show encapsulated all of it into one, like, whatever, 2.5 hours. And it was just the wave of emotions was insane. And we're going to touch a little bit on all of that here. And here's the thing. We love and appreciate the fact that you guys go back and watch us on IWTV. But like Gerard just said, there's nothing like seeing it live and in person. It's just a whole different experience. But and then watch it live and then go back and watch us on IWTV so you can hear our soundtrack. To put the soundtrack,
it'll be different. That's
because you don't want to miss that.
Yeah.
But well, let's get going here straight from the get-go. We kicked off the show with the a semifinal match for the Jake the Snake Legacy Championship tournament. It was the Kenway taking on Bryce Cannon, and but hey, what a way to kick off the show! A tournament semifinal match. And what were you guys' thoughts on this one?
Well, I had mixed emotions after our talking to Chip pre-show.
Then there's that.
I mean, you know, we have to talk about that. And
touch on that real quick, Diana. Go ahead and fill everybody in case they missed it.
Oh well, pre-show we had Bad Boy Chip Day live in person, in color, like
LIVE live.
And I mean, called us out on some things we shared and said, and I'm gonna watch my mouth from here on out. I'm gonna make sure that I don't.
Well, so here's the thing. We've been kind of praising the Kenway as of late because he's new to us. He's been around for a while, took some time off of pro wrestling, and I really think that's the part that really gets Chip Day's goat right there.
Think so.
But here's the thing. Over the time that he's been here in SHW the last few months, we've been impressed, and I think the crowd's really taken to him, and that's where Chip Day had a problem. I don't think he typically has a problem with us in general, but the fact that we had been putting over Kenway on the last few episodes kind of, he let us know. He wasn't about it.
Yeah, because he like you said, he feels like Kenway has everybody snowed, and I guess maybe he's just looking out for us, thinking that maybe we were snowed as well.
Could be.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. But I will say, I'm sorry, Chip, but I am glad he did beat Bryce Cannon.
Oh, absolutely.
even though, but you know what? This is the match we wanted, right? We wanted Kenway. Chip didn't want him to advance, but we wanted to see this finals that we're going to get. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, you know, I think SHW has really become the place where you have to pay attention to every piece of content we have. because it all ends up connecting. And if you miss something, like you miss a really important piece, I will tell you, watching that match without Talking Chip, you feel one way. With Talking Chip, you feel another. Oh, wait. So y'all don't know what Talking Chip is. So let me tell you what Talking Chip is. Because they're like, what? Okay.
They will eventually.
Yeah, Chip Day coming on the pre-show last week was just a thing of beauty. And if you watched it, we kind of dubbed it Talking Chip, which could mean a lot of things, right? And he's already told us that he's gonna show up at the next pre-show. And so what I'm saying is, if you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, go back, YouTube, Facebook, watch our pre-show. Our recap of that is doing that experience no justice. You have to hear and feel the vibe of what Chip is talking about.
It's deep.
So that it is really, and you could tell there's something very, very deep that we kind of scratched the surface on. So that made this semifinal very interesting, because before I'm just like, hey, the Kenway, he just kind of came in, and now I'm trying to figure out what is this thing that's happening. And certainly, again, the Kenway came on in and did his thing, but this is literally one of those spots where you have to watch for every single piece, because everything is meaning something without us knowing that it's meaning something.
Right.
So,
it's enlightening.
It was a wild one. And here's the thing. We say this all the time when it comes to those no good exotic youth. They travel in packs. And of course, all three members were there. You had Pepperbottom and Mosley. They had Bryce Cannon's back, so they were ringside. Eventually, our referee would eject them from ringside, and to help them make their way to the back, we saw a surprise return from Cyrus the Destroyer. He's been terrorizing Japan as of late, and now he's back. He was back at the Action Building for SHW51. He helped run them off to the back, and that was a thing of beauty. I absolutely loved it. They were scattering like cockroaches. But I just got to say, so the Kenway ended up winning this matchup. He will advance, and I just got to say, I'm so happy, because here's the thing. I've said this on commentary. I will admit. Now, Diana, last week you kind of inadvertently complimented these guys and kind of, put them over, I guess, a little bit. And I kind of have to a small degree, because I will tell you this. If they're in the ring, and look, just recently I've heard Shivani say it about MJF, for instance. When he's in the ring and he just wrestles, he can wrestle with the best of them. He's got the skill. It's the attitude. The no good, just they're just jerks. They're just jerks. And it drives me nuts in the fact that the thought, if they were to hold a championship title in our company, it makes me nauseous thinking about it. So
I'm safe. I'm safe from that July 7th date, y'all.
Yeah,
I was nervous.
And so, it was like when Bryce got into the tournament unexpectedly at the last show.
Right.
Oh man, I couldn't believe it. And then he advanced, and it made it even worse. Anyways, and now we've got Rumblejack right around the corner. So I can't, all three of those guys, if they're in the Rumblejack, I mean, hopefully they get eliminated quickly, because I don't want them getting near an SHW title. I don't want them to represent this company, because they're jerks. And I know I don't speak for all of us.
Yeah, you do.
I want to put, you know what? It's probably because I got the Loudmouth shirt on. It's making me extra boisterous.
It's really got you going. I kind of like it.
They really get my blood boiling. And let me just say this. I know Chip has warned us about the Kenway, but in this case, I was very glad to see the Kenway advance in this tournament. So, the Kenway will make it to the finals next month.
I feel like I'm about to get myself in trouble. I can see it happening right now. But there's a part of me that wonders, should we extend at some point an invitation to the Kenway to join us on the podcast to share his side of why this story is the way it is? I just want to present both sides and give you all the opportunity to choose, because I have no idea, and I'm in no way am I insinuating that Chip is telling us a falsehood. I'm not saying that at all. but I would be intrigued to see what Kenway feels about his relationship with Chip. And who knows, maybe between now and our next show or at some point we can get him on to discuss that. Who knows?
I mean, that would make sense. I mean, we're not in that relationship or whatever
we're
relationship.
Not, so we don't know.
We were not there prior, so we don't have the feelings. I feel the emotion because good Lord, he made it known. I feel the emotion.
It's undeniable.
But I don't have the deep rooted feelings that Chip has against Kenway, and like I said, we don't know Kenway's side. I mean, I think that'd be a good idea, and then maybe have a face off.
Oh, not Lord. On our show. Not on this show.
Not at the pre-show.
That's for the ring.
Not at the pre-show.
That's in the ring.
You mean one of you guys wouldn't want to do a face-off interview with him?
Hey, you know how I am at the commentary booth. Like, GB, you sit in the middle.
But listen, you've done it with Owen and David, and you've done it with Logan. So I mean,
and I got hurt. So yeah.
Okay, so we'll get you guys a cubicle or something to sit in the center and just let them.
Listen, we're already living through Anita Baker and Babyface right now, so I'm sitting here like let's let them. We'll just present and let them work it out.
We'll give them the forum to state their case.
Yes,
and then fair enough.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Well, anyways, post match. Let's talk about that real quick. So Cyrus comes out. Apparently Cyrus had a conversation with our matchmaker, Jake the Snake, earlier in the day. Mm-hmm. He told Cyrus he could pick any member, or actually any member of Exotic Youth could take him on one-on-one. If Cyrus won that match, he gets to pick 2 partners to face Exotic Youth next month in a 6-man tag team match. However, if that member of Exotic Youth beat Cyrus, then they got to face him 3-on-1 in a handicap match next month at SHW52. It ended up being Pepper Bottom. Actually, it was kind of confusing there as Bryce and...
I think it was mistakenly.
Bryce and Mosley were both kind of like, no, I'll do it. No, I'll do it. Meanwhile, and I don't know if this was intentional. I kind of think it probably was. While they distracted him, Pepper Bottom's up on the top rope trying to catch him off guard. Instead, he got swatted out of the air like a fly and then just planted. And GB, you even said, I think that might hold the record for possibly the fastest pinfall we've ever had in an
13 seconds or something like that.
It was less than that, I think.
Less than that. It felt less than that.
Yeah. There is one that's maybe even shorter, and we'll touch on that a little later as we honor one of our departing members of the roster. But anyways, so Cyrus won. Now he gets to pick 2 partners of his choosing to face Exotic Youth next month in a 6-man tag team match. Who will he choose? Here's the thing.
Overkill.
Well, he was put with Top Team before.
This is true.
But see, he didn't get to choose. That wasn't of his choosing. So now I'm curious to see who he'll actually choose to face. And here's the thing. He doesn't need 2 extra
That's
people.
what I'm saying.
But
it's a little overkill.
But hey, you know what?
I mean, finish the job, right? Just
hey, you know what? Yeah. I will take it. The more people that are going to beat on Exotic Youth, the better, in my opinion.
There's a part of me that still wonders if they're going to announce Brandon and Diana as the other 2 members.
You know what?
Which I'm sure you guys would not mind.
I mean, I'm not worried too much
because you know what it would be, GB. All we would have to be is like the corner man. You know, just you got it, buddy. You got it, buddy. Pat him on the back. You got it. You know, just
get an occasional slap in and then
we'll just do the cheer and we'll get the crowd cheering and that's it.
Yeah.
Slap only happens if he's got Diana's name in his mouth. That's when he gets slapped.
That's right.
Look, I warned him.
So you did. You did.
Anyways, let's move on. But we are excited to see that 6-man tag match. It will happen at SHW52 July 7th, and we got a lot more of that to come in the coming weeks. But moving on to the next match, it was Danny Jordan presented us with a revamped women's division, and this kicked it off. It was Kylie Alexa from the NWA, and you got Dream Girl Ellie, who's making waves in OVW, amongst other places, in a one-on-one matchup. And GB, the real mean girl, Danny Jordan, actually joined us on commentary.
Yes, she did. That was great. It was great. You know, to me, I think it's great because we're getting to hear her vision for this women's division. You know, we have talked about it extensively on this podcast, the need for a women's division, the need for a women's title, to see it finally happening and to hear her talk about it in the same ways that we've talked about it is really, really refreshing. And these young ladies tore the house down.
Yeah, they really did. It was a really good match. It was not even surprisingly good. It was just really good. We've seen Ellie a number of times. We've seen her on TV and stuff to do her thing, and she's impressive. I was super impressed with Kylie Alexa though.
Yes.
Holy crap. Her presence. I mean, how long has she been doing this? Less than a year?
Less than a year.
Could have fooled me because she looked like a pro. Impressed. I'm a fan.
Look, there's something in those genes in her family because she's 19. She's the youngest signee to NWA and less than a year in the business. Her sister, Kenzie Page, who we've seen in SHW a couple of times, this was back in, I think, 2019, and she may have been 18 or 19 at that time, and she had one of the greatest matches with Danny at that, and I think Danny will even say that. I think she mentioned on commentary that was one of her favorite matches she's ever had. And the fact that her and now her sister Kylie Alexa at such young ages can come in, it looked like they've been doing this forever. I mean, their whole family has been in the wrestling business for years and years, and so they've kind of grown up in the ring, it seems like. But man, what a hard-hitting affair that was, and it was just I felt like a great kickoff to this revamped women's division here in SHW. So I'm excited to see what comes down the line here as we move on. But man, what a matchup. And of course, Dream Girl Ellie did win the match. You saw Danny kind of get in the ring afterwards, and they've kind of had a bit of a history, not necessarily at SHW, but just throughout their careers. And when Danny got up from the commentary booth, I kind of thought, uh-oh, what's about to happen here? But she ended up, they shook her hand. They embraced in the ring. And but yeah, what does that mean for Ellie? Ellie's now in the win column here in SHW.
Yeah, and I think that's going to.
What does that mean for the division? Are we going to get two fresh faces next time, or?
That's kind of what's in my head is, trying to figure out what's next, because the truth of it is, to avoid whatever the women's division was pre this moment, we cannot have it centered around one person. So that means we're going to have multiple faces. There's a point where I'm wondering if we're going to need multiple matches on a single card to really build this division, to give people the opportunity to see this great talent. And then there's an interesting thought in the back, right up here. And the thought is this: how will Danny Jordan feel in a full women's division if she is kind of managing the division versus the front runner in ring of the division? That's probably a question for another day, but that's, again, up here in my head. Right now, I'm just so excited about the job she's doing in bringing great talent in, and I'm wondering who's next to be a part of this new SHW women's division. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, and kind of to your point, GB, I was wondering as well, like, at what point does Danny get back in the ring to compete? Like right now, she's, Jake has given her the reins to kind of bring in some ladies from whether they're in state or out of state and to compete here in this women's division. But at what point does she say, okay, now I want to get in and show them what's up? So I don't know.
Or does she?
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? That's a good question. So time will tell, and we'll see what happens next month on July 7th. But moving on down the card, let's see. Well, this is where it gets got a little emotional, to say the least. As you see, I'm sporting my AC Mac shirt in honor of the great Mac of all trades, loudest mouth in the South. He took Nick Halen on one-on-one in a match with a very heavy stipulation. The stipulation was, if Mac were to win this matchup, he would become the sole wrestler of the year in 2022 for the GWH award. However, if he lost, then he would leave SHW for good. We'd said this in the weeks leading up to this night. that we just did not feel good about the stipulation. And that was not to take anything away from Mac. More so, I was concerned about what actually ended up happening was that Nick Halen would stoop to any level to end up trying to win this matchup. And that's where I was worried that Mac might be in trouble. And of course, that's exactly what happened. You had somebody at the time, it was just a masked man in the crowd, passing off a pair of brass knucks to Nick Halen without the ref seeing it. Boom. AC Mac goes down. Halen hits the elbow drop. 1, 2, 3. And that's it for AC Mac and SHW. It was, I could talk a little bit more about what happened afterwards, but let's get your thoughts on what you thought of this match and what you think about Mac leaving SHW.
Well, I think had Nick not cheated, he'd definitely been the loser of that particular match. AC mopped the floor. I think he did. I think he did his thing. He did what he does. He did everything that you would imagine the highest ranked independent wrestler in the world to do. And he did. I mean, he played his part. He did his thing. I think that somebody in Nick's corner saw the desperation in his face and just had to throw him a bone. So disappointed. I'm disappointed. Very disappointed. But there's a stipulation that AC agreed to, maybe even came up with.
Yeah, he came up with it.
He did come up with it, yeah.
So, we got to roll with it. Better roll with it. But you know what?
I think back to Still Here 3 when we had Gunnar Miller and we had Gunnar Miller fighting in kind of this, it wasn't quite a loser leaves SHW, but it was a space where, if his opponent got beaten, he would retire. And him and Corey Hollis had a great match, and there was no chicanery. Yeah. And so at the end, when Gunnar Miller beats Corey Hollis, we're sad that Corey's gone, but we can accept it because it was a fair match between two people. The problem here is I think we all were good with the idea that if this is a one-on-one contest, AC wins all day. Right. And he was in the process of doing that. For, Nick Halen to connect with this hooded figure because Nick Halen knew that on his own he couldn't beat AC Mac. That's what makes this even worse, because I think we would have been able to handle it if AC just had a bad night and couldn't get it done. But he was in the process of winning, and to lose that way makes it really challenging. And I don't know how Nick Halen went to sleep last Friday night. I don't know how all of that, how you face your children and say, hey, I put a man out of work and I did it through nefarious means. And now we have to call you the wrestler of the year and the guy who put AC Mac out of SHW. Yeah, I'm not exactly feeling that. And we'll get to later who that masked person was, because then that adds another layer in here in terms of my level of disappointment with this.
Yeah, and to start the show, we talked about, GB mentioned the roller coaster of emotions throughout the entire night. So we had some big stuff that kicked off the show, the return of Cyrus, the announcement that Cyrus gets to take on Exotic Youth next month in 6-man tag team action. We see a great women's match for the first time in a while at SHW. So we're kind of all right now on cloud 9. Then the air just got let out of the room with how this match ended, and everybody was shocked, disappointed, pissed off, I'll be honest. And then came the post-match, and then everybody got in their feels a little bit, so you get You get the happiness, the sadness, the upset, then just this, everybody getting emotional here. And there was a video presentation for AC Mack, a tribute video. Austin Theory, an SHW alum, sending a video message and reminiscing on their days back in WWA 4 and coming through the ranks together in the independent scene. And then just a highlight package of AC Mack throughout the years here at SHW. And man, oh man, I was doing my best to keep it together in the ring. Just to pull back the curtain a little bit, there was a discussion backstage with some of the SHW officials. Okay, this video, we're gonna see if we'll get Mac to cry here. And I said, Mac probably will cry. I'm gonna cry. They showed me this video, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is gonna be tough. And but man, I tell you what, it was a great moment and a great tribute, a great bidding of farewell to the great AC Mack. And then of course he had some nice words at the end as well for the crowd, as the crowd chanted AC Mack and thank you, Mac. And it was just we talk about it all the time, GB, just it's about moments. And similarly to when David left, and it was that moment. You could just feel it in the crowd, and because it's one of those things where once the crowd really realizes, like, oh wow, okay, this is actually happening. He is actually leaving, and then it kind of hits everybody, and then that's when it gets a little bit. Here I go again.
Stop it.
But it's yeah. But we'll move on, just because otherwise.
Please,
I will tell you this.
I'm trying to keep it intact. I'm trying to keep my composure.
I will tell you this on a bit of a brighter note. We already knew this isn't going to be the last we see of Mac. It will just be the last we see of him at SHW inside of an SHW ring. However, to all the listeners and the watchers of this show right here, here's a little treat for you. We're going to a little sneak peek tease for you, if you will. AC Mack himself will be joining us next week right here on the podcast. So we get to love up on him and tell him all this sappy stuff to his face when we see him next week. So get ready, Diana. Just go ahead and have a box of Kleenex right there next to you. But anyways. Anything else, though, about before we move on to this next match? It's kind of weird because this is kind of something I feel like we should save for the end, but his match was in the middle of the card. So we'll just kind of talk about Mac now while we're on the subject. But any final words about Mac before we move on down the card here?
I'm gonna save it.
I was gonna say, Diana, I don't know if you can you maintain here? Can we?
Nope. I'm choking right now. My throat is so just like I can't. GB, go for it.
I will say that, I don't think people understand that you kind of have to prepare for multiple scenarios here. So even the idea that the video was prepared wasn't a guarantee that they were going to use it. It's just to say, in the event that this happens, we want to send him off well, but we don't really want to have to do it. And I think in my head, as nervous as I was that this could happen, I always held out hope that, AC is going to pull it out, and, certainly Nick Halen will have a little decorum and not do this to us. But again, Nick Halen and his thoughts about this company.
Pushed a man on crutches to the floor.
Exactly. He's not, he's not caring about that. So to that end, Mac has been just a when you think about SHW, you think about AC Mack. You do. Here's a guy who became the champion of this company. And it's interesting. We've seen a number of people come from this company, as we saw last month with Bad News and Tattoos, Carly Bravo, how you will leave this company to go on and do bigger and even better things on a national level. And I can't help but think about 2022 and the year that Mac literally took the world by storm, becoming the IWTV world champion. And Brandon, you were there when it happened. Diana and I were watching together, and we were all just kind of like, oh my God, this is our guy representing us to the world. And for him to make his choice to have his first world title defense with us and SHW, and we got to call it. Diana got to do the ring announcement. It says a lot about what he thinks about this company. I told him this, and I'll tell you all that I am grateful that we had the opportunity to be the soundtrack for these moments and these matches. I will say this to the fans. I am very big, and I won't take a lot of time. I know we got other things to do at the show, but I have such huge respect for this sport. And I know people have their thoughts about the sport being whatever it is, but I really believe that the athletes in this sport do things that athletes in no other sport can do.
Yeah.
If you look at football, basketball, baseball, hockey, all of these sports are team sports that happen in a season. They work 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, then they get the rest of the year off, right? In other combat sports like boxing and MMA, they might perform twice a year. These wrestlers put their bodies on the line far more than any of these other athletes in any of these other sports do combined, right? They put their body through a lot. They travel, and I will say this, it is harder to hit a person without hurting them than it is to hit a person and hurt them, because at least you get to fully go through and whatever happens, happens. But you try to, so to that end, I really want our fans to really have the highest level of respect for these athletes who literally put their bodies on the line. And in the world of independent wrestling, well, and in on the majors as well, they don't necessarily have things like health insurance because it's not part of the deal, which I'm sure most of you are like, what do you mean? That's another podcast for another day. The point of it is they put their literal lives on the line for our entertainment. And many of them end up working other jobs to be able to do what we do. So I hope that we can have a higher level of respect for them than many do. With that said, to watch AC Mack do this and then make history and then take this thing around the world and still call SHW home is massive. The year he had in 2022, I don't know that we're going to see another independent wrestler have that kind of year and be an independent wrestler. I don't know if that's ever going to happen again, legit. So I have a high level of respect for AC Mack, incredibly high. And I'm grateful that even though I don't like the way this happened, thank you, Nick Halen, I'm glad that it's not an injury that has taken him out. I'm glad that he is fully healthy. I'm glad that he can decide whatever the next chapter is for his life. And I honor that.
Yeah.
Well
It's yeah, very well said, buddy. And yeah, we're going to get to talk to him next week. So I'm very excited about that and get some of his thoughts about what happened. And then also some thoughts about, his future, what he's got coming up down the road, and just a time for all of us to thank him and show him our appreciation, our love, like you just talked about, GB. And in fact, right now, I want to remind all of our fans, if you have questions or anything that you want to say to AC Mack, go ahead and don't be shy. Leave it in our comments here for this episode, and we'll be sure to bring it up to Mac next week when we have him on the show here. And yeah, it's like you said, GB. I said it after the match last week. It's whether the fans loved him or whether they loved to hate him, one thing's for sure is that we've all respected the heck out of him and appreciated everything he's done in that ring for us to entertain us. And I sent a post to him the other day saying, he's an amazing wrestler, an incredible entertainer, but an even better man.
Absolutely.
And it's just been an absolute privilege just to call him a friend. And like you said, a privilege. And I hope you didn't mind me speaking for you in the ring the other night, GB, when I said,
fine.
I feel like I speak for GB when I say it's been an absolute privilege from the bottom of our hearts to be able to call all of those iconic moments in the past 5 years at SHW. So just so many big moments. I mean, I was going through trying to pick out a few little video clips to post the other day, and I had to stop at like, 4 or 5 because there's countless, and I couldn't even decide. Right. I was like, well, there's this one, there's this, there's just so many. And gosh, it's just gonna be, it's not gonna be the same without AC Mac in the SHW locker room. So gonna miss him. But like he said, he's not going anywhere as far as like moving away. So we'll see him around town. Who knows? Maybe he comes and just sits in the crowd and enjoys a show like the fans do. I don't know. But anyways, we're gonna miss him.
I mean, he may not be wrestling in the SHW ring, but he's welcome to hit commentary table with you guys for sure.
Absolutely.
Let me just throw this out there. And I may have mentioned this on the podcast before. I don't recall, but I mentioned this to him the other day. One of my favorite Mac memories, and GB, this is shortly before, maybe a few months before you joined me in the booth, and I was still working with Adam. A-Bomb 2 Sweet was the commentary partner, and he would always kind of give me a hard time. We'd kind of go back and forth sometimes. But there was the Rumble Jack, the very first one, Rumble Jack 2019. Mac happened to be the champion at the time, so he was not in the match. However, he joined us for that full hour plus on commentary, and I absolutely loved it because he was giving Adam a hard time like throughout the whole match. And I remember thinking, like, can you just join us every show? This is great. And meanwhile, I'm trying to stifle my laughter so I can call the match, without being distracted too much. But anyways, I was always given a hard time early in the days of SHW for being a fan of AC Mac and not being an unbiased journalist as I should be. But there's a couple of shows where I just wore my Mac shirt and I couldn't help it. But there's a reason why he's my favorite. I mean, you've seen it firsthand, GB. You mentioned it. He's a world champion, ranked number 25 in the PWI 500. That's insane.
Let me tell you something. When I saw that, I just it's kind of like, if you go to school with somebody and you're like, oh my God, this is happening. Like all of those moments, the world title moment, the PWI moment, all of those things, like they made me feel so good because what I don't think people understand is as much as we love SHW, I want the world to know about what our people are doing. Yeah. Right. And so when it's undeniable to the rest of the world, that makes it super special. It was like seeing that Austin Theory's video showing up, talking to Mac. We've talked about, Theory being a part of our organization over time, but for people to actually see it, it's like, and this is the guy who beat John Cena at WrestleMania. He came from SHW. Yeah. Like, those things are massive.
Yeah. And by the way, folks, we're only on match 3. We've got a whole rest of the card to get to. And think about how much of a roller coaster we've already been on. No. My point is, think about how much of emotional roller coaster it's been in just those 3 matches, right?
Because there's more.
Because there's so much more.
A lot more. And we're already like semi-drained at that point of emotions, and then we have the whole rest of the show to get to. So moving on from there, we kind of had an unexpected thing happen where, well, actually, we did know that we were supposed to hear from Todd Sexton and Judas and maybe get some answers as to what happened the month prior when Judas became the SHW champion. What ended up unfolding is we ended up having, well, technically 2 SHW title matches, impromptu, back to back. Todd Sexton came out, and I'm not going to get into the whole thing. You can go on IWTV and watch. By the way, you're going to want to watch this. You're going to want to watch this entire show, first of all. You really will. But you can see what Todd Sexton had to say. He had a lot to say. There was a lot to unpack. He had some not so kind things to say to all 3 of us, so I'm not really going to elaborate on all that. But what ended up happening was he said, well, Judas is going to be a fighting champion. I've found 2 guys that are the top competition around, and he brings out 2. No offense to these guys. I'm sure they're nice guys. I'm sure they could go on and have great careers. But to us, at this point, fairly unknown. Okay. And it ended up being a 2-on-1 match. Honestly, kind of historic because it was the very first time the Southern Honor title had been defended in a 2-on-1 handicap match.
Correct.
But for Todd to come out there and say this was going to be some of the best competition and all that was just kind of laughable, because what ended up happening was Judas, kind of like Cyrus did with Pepper Bottom. I mean, it was like that. In an instant, match was over.
Yeah.
And then old Jake the Snake shows up on our screens. And not only...
He's always watching.
Yeah, he's always watching. And not only did he take away Todd Sexton's authority.
Yes.
And my understanding was, I assume that means any authority, not just matchmaking.
He said, you have no more power in Southern Honor.
Yeah. So that was a huge bombshell. But then he also said, oh, I forgot to mention, Corey Hollis had gotten involved. There was a whole thing with Corey Hollis showing back up. We haven't seen him since he took the spike to the eye a couple months ago. And so Jake the Snake decides to make another impromptu Southern Honor Championship match. Corey Hollis versus Judas. Not just later tonight, but right then. And so we had an impromptu another world title match, or Southern Honor title match rather. And it was, I'll just let you guys take it from there, but it was a heck of a match, and not something we had, as you would say, GB, on our bingo card, because totally unexpected.
It was brutal. I would say that. It was unexpected. I don't think anybody expected Corey to show up just out of the blue and then get a title match, regardless of what Todd wanted or Judas wanted. But
I don't think Corey even thought. I think Corey was just trying to show up to get a measure of revenge and just kind of attack Judas.
Just a little bit.
So that worked out in his favor.
he did have a little bit of a showing, that was valid, but man, it was brutal, y'all. It was. I'd like to see what Corey looks like right now, because he took so many boots to the face.
Oh,
big boots.
I just want to yank him out and just be like, come get out of there, but what do you do?
Duck, get down.
Listen,
I think he was out on his feet.
Yeah,
though.
he was.
He knew to duck.
He was.
Yeah.
I mean, he did come to a little bit. He was fighting, but I mean, it did take Todd to cheat to get the match to end, but still, war wounds.
Yeah, the match really concerned me, and you know, when you hear the commentary, we literally wonder, should this match be stopped, because Corey took a lot of blows to the head, a lot of unprotected blows to the head, and it made me wonder, even though this match was impromptu, is this something that Judas has wanted for a long time? When you have the big brother that seemingly holds you down, you never think you're going to get that opportunity to get some payback on him. And so when you finally do, because listen, there were moments in that match where Judas was smiling. He was smiling at the damage that he was doing. So it was that him smiling is a very frightening thing. I do my best not to look him in the eye, because he always likes to come over to the table and just stare me down. I don't know whatever I did to him. I don't know why. But what I know for sure is these are going to be some very interesting days in SHW with Judas as our champion. And now he has the backing of Todd Sexton. And Sexton used a term at the end of SHW 50 that made me go, And he used the same term again at this show. And he said that this was the end game.
And GB, I've come to find out that's what they're calling themselves now. They're calling themselves the end game. And when I say themselves, I'm not just referring to Judas and Todd Sexton, because what I neglected to mention was that what we saw was a similar masked man that came out during the Nick Halen and AC Mack match to assist Judas and Todd Sexton, removes the mask. It is Nick Halen. And then we come to realize, well, wait a second, the masked man in the earlier match, that was Todd Sexton. So these guys have been in cahoots, and who knows for how long, but it seems like it's been the long con that they've been playing on us for quite a while here. And we knew that there's been affiliations with these guys and other promotions. Now they've brought it to SHW. They're referring to themselves as the end game. And Gunnar Miller shows up at the end of the chaos and gets involved. And we end up seeing kind of a, not necessarily a face-off, because they weren't right by each other, but you had the end game on the stage, and you had Gunnar and Corey in the ring, and it was quite an intense moment. And I know for sure things are not over between all of those gentlemen because, well, gentlemen, I use that term very loosely because nothing gentle about any of what was going down. But yeah, so you got Halen, Judas, Sexton, and then you got a seemingly new alliance. I guess it's not a new alliance because if you recall back at the beginning of the year, Corey did show up to help Gunner and Gary win back control of SHW, but it is still surreal to us to see the alliance of Corey and Gunner. And over the last few months, you know, Corey or Gunner really hasn't seemed too sure about Corey.
Neither have we.
But then
I
we
know
saw,
I haven't.
and then we saw them embrace though at the end of the chaos, and so it looks like they're aligned. And you have Endgame, and who knows what kind of clash it's going to be between these two forces. But I know it's not the end of that story, and it should be interesting. But chaos, I tell you, pure chaos.
Complete chaos.
Well, then we move on down the card to a couple of, well, I'll say one official SHW debut, and in SHW, let's call it a re-debut, as the man formerly known as Blanco Loco re-debuted as Orion, and he took on the debuting Movie Mike. Movie Mike, now we saw earlier before the show, the weeks leading up to it, he had released a video inviting Ashton Starr to be his +1 at the show. We didn't quite know what to make of that, what it meant. What we do know is that Movie Mike did bring a chair with Ashton's name on it and set it out there, set it up on the ramp, or up on the stage rather, and I guess he expected Ashton to show up and watch the match. However, Ashton never showed up, and you could tell throughout the match, Movie Mike kept looking up there, you know, Ashton, where are you? Ashton, what are you doing? Well, you know, and so I still don't know what to make of all this. It's still kind of crazy, but Orion was a treat to watch, as he always is. He hadn't been in SHW since, what did we say, 2019? When he went on, when he took on Gunnar Miller, I think, and it was when Gunnar had just come into the company, and so it had been a minute. But Orion had not missed a beat and looked amazing. However, he did come up just a bit short as Movie Mike. Movie Mike got the win here. But what do we make of this whole thing with Movie Mike, and of course Ashton not showing up? I mean, certainly that's not over, but it was just such a weird situation. I don't know what to make of it.
Are we making a movie with Movie Mike? Because it's a mystery to me at the moment. So I mean, I don't know. I still don't understand.
Well, so just to your question, what he told me before the show, because I had the same question. I was like, so what's the deal here? And it was still confusing. But what he told me was that he had been making, or in the process of making a movie about his life, but he has put it on pause so that he can direct Ashton and allow Ashton to become the star of the show. And that's all I knew.
Ashton has the documentary already, does he not?
Well, that's true. Good point.
I mean, Starfire's, it's not that old. We could do a sequel. We could do that. Sure.
Starfire,
I mean, why not? He's got a whole new body, whole new look, whole new attitude.
Starfire 2, Electric Boogaloo. Whatever you want to call it.
Whatever you want to call it.
That.
I'm just spitballing.
Wow.
But as far as Movie Mike, I'm just still confused. I mean, he during the match, he was looking around for Ashton, and he wasn't even concentrating on Orion. How he wound up winning that match, I do not know. But what's the deal?
You know, these obsessions, and I think it's safe to call it an obsession at this point, they can be quite dangerous. And, you know, I think, you know what this kind of reminds me of on these wonderful days of the socials? You know, when you connect with somebody and perhaps you comment on their post a few times, and maybe they like something that you say, or maybe they politely respond back. And all of a sudden you've created in your mind a relationship, and now you guys are besties, and you guys are all of these things. Yes, sir.
GB, do you remember the Eminem song Stan?
There it is.
What you just said, that's right where my mind went. But anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes. I mean, and that's literally what we have, such that people feel like they know you, and then they have these expectations of you when all you know is their social media handle. Shoot, you don't
Right.
even know if they actually look like their profile picture. I could tell you stories, folks, of folks who have reached out and, you know, we all get in places and I'm trying to recognize them and they have to tell me their social media handle. And I'm like, oh, and in my head, I'm like, I don't know who you are.
No, my picture is the big dog Roman Reigns. That's why you don't recognize me.
You know what I mean? And so part of me wonders if Ashton is just like, dude, I don't know you.
Right.
Like, is your name even Mike? You call yourself Movie Mike. Why would, and my other concern, Movie Mike, it's never a good thing to stop what you're doing to wait for somebody else. Life lesson. Okay. Because you now stopped your whole production. You put out a seat. You spent some money to get his name put on the back of that seat too.
Very nice.
And you sat it there and you're mad because he didn't show up as your +1. Did he even RSVP? Did he tell you that he was coming? You just assumed. And you know what they say about assumptions, right? So to that end, I say movie the mic. You're really gonna, you know, when the match was over, he was really mad at Ashton. But like, check yourself, dude, because if Ashton never committed to showing up, then how are you mad at him? Because you made all these sacrifices that he didn't ask you to make.
Which again,
now, if I'm Ashton, I'm very careful because if this dude made these kinds of assumptions, I hope he's not, you know, trying to Google and figure out where Ashton's going to be next week. Because that's the kind of vibe I'm getting.
For me.
I will say this is getting interesting, and I want Ashton to look out for his own safety.
Yes, he needs somebody to watch his 6.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, from there, we move on down to another gentleman that we were supposed to hear from to hopefully get some answers from what happened at the month prior. And that would be I almost hesitate to call him the working team captain because now I don't think after what we saw the other night that the working team really even exists anymore. So I'll just call him Owen Knight. Owen Knight made his way to the ring and stood in the ring with the microphone, looking like he might start to say something. Never did. And I talk about, man, you talk about the crowd from like just a month difference of how they used to treat him as the working team captain and how hyped they used to be when he'd make his entrance. He came out to some
new music.
Where I was gonna say he came out to a new song. It's a lot slower, a lot more menacing as he slowly walked around the ring and didn't even really acknowledge any of the fans. Well, he did briefly when he ripped out a sign and ripped it up out of the hands of one of the fans. But other than that, you know, it just wasn't the same. It was just surreal. It was the only way I could put it, just from what we're used to with Owen Knight. And so he's in the ring. He never ends up saying anything. And I think the officials in the back decided, okay, well, we've got another tournament match to get to. So let's, you know, if he's not going to say anything, let's send out the competitors and let's get this next JTS tournament match going. So Shoe Taylor goes, his music hits, he comes out to the ring. Meanwhile, Owen unexpectedly sits next to GB and I at the commentary table, and we're thinking, GB even thought, okay, well, maybe we're going to get some answers here. Maybe he's going to join us on commentary for this tournament match. And, you know, Chip makes his way out. The match is starting to get underway. Owen never once said a single word. He just kept blowing bubbles with that bubble gum and popping it into the microphone. And it was so strange. And GB, and God love you, GB. And we all, Diana, you know this. GB loves to ask the questions. He's got to get to the bottom of stuff. And I love him for it because he knows the exact questions to ask. And so I'm sitting there thinking, okay, GB's going to get to the bottom of this. He's going to ask the right questions, and we're going to figure out what's going on in the mind of Owen Knight. However, GB, you want to explain what happened? Or what didn't happen, rather?
What didn't happen, because I did ask the questions, but he was not responding. And you've got to know, you know, Owen's been on this podcast several times. He's very open. He's very gregarious. And so I'm expecting that even in a challenging space, you know, hey, you'll talk to me. You'll tell me what's going on. He didn't, I guess he felt like Jesus. He didn't say a mumbling word. Like, I'm trying to understand, like, sir, what's happening here? And I almost can't believe it. And then there was a moment where Shoot Taylor had a maneuver that almost resembled the clock out.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I did say that it resembled the clock out, and the look that he gave me, if looks could kill.
Yes, if looks could kill,
Yes.
you shooting daggers.
Yes.
And there was one thing that you finally said to him. You said, I suppose when he's ready, he will tell us what he's thinking. And then he just did a slow clap.
He did. He did a slow clap.
And at that point, we realized, oh, GB, I guess you nailed it. I guess that's what we're waiting for.
We made a breakthrough, and just
Um,
know that it's very awkward to have somebody sitting next to you that you're supposed to acknowledge that does not want to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
It's very odd.
It was very strange. He kicked up the shoes on the, kicked up the feet on the table and just was sitting there and not saying a word. Here's the thing, too, is meanwhile, there's an incredible match happening in the ring, another semifinal match between Chip and Shoot Taylor. Chip, of course, would come out on top, but don't put anything past Shoot Taylor because he put on a phenomenal performance, and it just wasn't his night. He just came up just a bit short. But what was interesting is after the match, Chip exits the ring, shoots, trying to exit. Owen goes in there, hits a ripcord stunner, which I've never seen him use that maneuver before. I don't know if that's, I have to, if I could talk to him, if he'll talk to me, maybe I can figure out what he's calling that maneuver. But anyways, he hit Shoot with it, laid Shoot out, and then decided to get the microphone and address the crowd. And boy, did he go and go and go, to the point where our officials from the back had to come out there and be like, hey, you got to wrap this up. We've got a main event to get to. It was wild.
Yeah. At the risk of, again, getting in trouble, and maybe he won't watch this, so he won't see this. But while he was sitting in commentary space with us, I think he felt like escape. He put up his shoes and he relaxed his feet. He partied down to his own internal beat and decided to kick it until he got up, when he kicked it for real. And when he did, it wasn't good.
No.
And he had a lot to say. And everything that I thought, maybe I was wrong with why I thought he did what he did. He had his own explanation. You really just need to sit down and watch.
Yeah.
To see if you can understand where he is, the space that he's in, and if you're actually involved in it. Are you part of whatever this new working team might be? You have to determine that when you check out SHW51.
Yeah. Go definitely you're going to want to, like I said, watch the whole show, but especially for a moment like that. Well, I say moments, because it took a minute, but just go back and see if you can kind of decipher what all he had to say, because there was a lot to unpack, and it would take us too long to try to delve into it on this episode here. But because, just like the other night, we've got a main event to get to. And not just any main event. We're talking about a tables match for the SHW Tag Team Championships. And going into it, the week leading up to SHW51, we found out Sal Rinauro had injured his hamstring at the NWA Crockett Cup and was not cleared to compete at SHW51. Jake the Snake, however, was going to allow Sunny Days up until bell time to pick a replacement, with the caveat that the titles would still be on the line. And Jake had said, this feud has become way too personal and has gone on way too long for us to cancel or postpone this matchup. So it is going to happen. And it sure did happen. You had the hierarchy making their way out, bringing out the grocery cart full of plunder. And the rules of this matchup, both members of the opposing team had to be put through a table. And once somebody's put through the table, they had to leave and go to the back. So Sunny Days comes out. And here's the big moment. The question on everybody's mind, who would his partner be? We were all shocked to find out it was the return of the former SHW champion, the man that actually never lost the title, had to relinquish it months ago due to injury. Well, he's cleared. He's back from injury. It was the Atrocity Cruel. He made his way out, and GB, you even touched on this. It was a bit of a reformation of sorts, of a different version of Cruel when he was with Sunny Days and Ravenna Vane when they formed the group Fear. And so, yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, well, it's not like Sonny's just picking up a random person to be his partner. This is somebody who he's been a partner with probably longer than he was a partner with Sal Bernaro. So here I am going into this match thinking, okay, now hierarchy's going to have the upper hand here with Sonny having to pick a random person. Then it was cruel, and I thought, uh-oh.
It's like the last strands of dishonor were still lingering.
Just very a little bit. Yeah, yeah. So anyways, your guys' thoughts. Go ahead.
I was shocked. I was shocked to see Cruel come out. I was. When his music hit, my behind got out of the ring fast.
I don't blame you.
I was done. I mean, I didn't know if Brooklyn was coming out. I didn't know what was happening. All I knew was I wasn't going to be in that ring when they hit. And it was a hot start. It was crazy. Chaos. Can we say chaos again? It was brutal. Tables flying everywhere. I will say that I don't know how it happened or how it was accidental that Cruel put Sonny through a table, but crumbling down.
It seemed to me at one point he was trying to throw Sonny through. I don't know who was propped up. Was it Joe maybe at the moment? And they got out of the way, and then Sonny ended up going through, and then Sonny, it seemed like, got a little upset at Cruel, like, you know, what the heck? And then Cruel has such a short fuse that he wasn't going to take any guff and say, you know what? And he put him through another table, and it was like, here was the rule of the match was the opponent had to put somebody through the table. You couldn't just accidentally go through it or fall off the apron and go through it, or your own partner put you through it. It had to be somebody from the opposing team put you through it. So Sonny ended up by the end of, what was the count? 3 or 4 by the end of the match?
Yeah.
That he wins.
There were so many tables.
Yeah.
I didn't know we had so many tables. I mean, I thought we broke them all. Or not we, but they had broken all the tables. So I guess we made a purchase somewhere. Went in debt or something.
Went in debt on tables.
The furniture that we break here. But yeah, I mean, crazy match.
There was,
crazy.
You're just gonna have to go back and watch it, folks. I mean, there was the time when Cruel's out in the crowd and Murder One just piling chairs on him.
Jeez.
And the visual.
I saw so many kids crying in fear.
Wow.
I would have been too. I mean, if I had been right there. Here's the thing.
Crazy.
I'm sure probably Impact was over there. I'm sure one of our cameras caught it. But there was one point where it's almost like the Undertaker, how he sits up.
Yes.
Envision that, but underneath a massive. Remember the scene in ECW where all the chairs got thrown in the ring on top of the wrestlers? So imagine that, but then the Undertaker sitting up out of the pile of chairs. That's what this looked like. It was frightening. It was very frightening. So there was just all kinds of.
I kind of a comic book or something. There's so many characters in this match.
GB, for you and me, you know firsthand, it's so hard to call when you have 2 guys break away and they're out in the crowd. 2 other guys are running around the ring doing crazy stuff, and you know it's just insane to keep up with.
It is.
It's almost like you have to have mobile mics so you can move around.
Yeah.
You know what? At least so we can see somewhere. Yeah, I don't want to go near it.
Yeah, I don't want to be following them around. I'm good where we're at. We already get enough grief at where we're at already. So
exactly. Good grief. It was nuts. It was absolutely crazy, and it got to a point where it certainly seemed like, you know, Joe was at a disadvantage because Murder One was eliminated, and so you had the 2 members of seemingly the reformed Fear or Dishonor against Joe. And then Joe managed to get Cruel through a table, leaving us one-on-one. Cruel goes off on Sonny. And now this looks like, wow, maybe somehow Joe can get the victory. And then...
feel good moment of the night, of the month, of the year.
I just got to tell you.
Wild again.
I just got to tell you, because I think GB just completely blacked out. But I got to tell you.
He did.
I will never forget the reaction from Gerard Bonner when this music hit. So
let me describe this.
Okay.
When the music comes on, it's not registering with me at all. I don't know what's happening.
Nor anybody in the crowd. It was a specific.
So here's what happened. So the music is going on. I'm kind of looking around. It took a minute before I looked to the stage.
Well, hang on, because Shannon, don't forget about. So this is what threw us all off. So Shannon, Joe's
Yes.
girlfriend, got back in the ring. Sonny had gotten the lighter fluid
Oh,
out.
that's right.
He was
There
about
was
to
that.
he was about to
See
light
all
a
the
table on
chaos.
fire.
Yeah.
And then Shannon gets into the ring to try to stop him. Then he gets Shannon like he's going to put her through a table. And we're kind of freaking out like, no. Somebody do something. And then we hear this weird montage of music. And I'll let you go from there.
Familiar music.
Yeah, but it wasn't registering, because kind of in my head, when I hear music playing, I'm thinking, who is this? And none of it was registering as who is. And we've had so many weird musical moments in SHW that, you know, hearing certain music isn't always an indicator of something.
True.
And so I think it hit me as it hit everybody else as soon as we heard the top. And then pandemonium ensued in SHW with, you know, people talk about reactions that they've seen in varying places. Once we get to our, you know, next year anniversary, which is our 5-year anniversary, we will likely play this clip as either the top or next to the top in terms of reactions in the history of this company, because that is exactly what happened.
By the way, we're talking about the All-Star Special in case we didn't actually mention their name yet.
Yeah.
In case you didn't know.
Yeah.
They made their return.
Huck and Hanson finally made their way back to the Action Building in Canton, Georgia. And let me just say, GB, to touch on what your point there as far as reactions go, in my humble opinion, having been there since our very first show, it ranks right up there with Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega. The reaction that those guys got, and that's saying a lot. And there have been some huge pops over the years, and not to take anything away from any of the other ones, but this one was just so massive that I think, and it's not that shocking because we've talked about it for months, how much we've missed them. The crowd has missed them. And
but it was unexpected.
The way they were gone from the company was so unceremoniously. It was just like, it was just such a special moment. And here's the thing. They didn't even have to do anything and get in the ring to get involved. All they did was cause the slightest bit of distraction for to Sunny Days for Joe Black to take advantage, put Sunny through a table, and there you go. The hierarchy, your new SHW Tag Team Champions, thanks in a little bit of a part to the returning All-Star Special. And then they made their way to the ring. GB got to hold Hanson's beer.
Literally.
And then they got in the ring and they toasted Joe Black. And that was a bit of a visual that we didn't think we'd see anytime soon. And because there's a ton of history with those guys as well. And man, just what a moment it was. Not only crowning new SHW tag champs, but also the return of one of the most beloved tag teams in SHW history, the All-Star Special. Hold my hash browns. By the way, I don't know if there's any left, but if you have a chance, you might want to get on jump in jump in Hanson's DMs and try to pre-order one of those custom shirts. They were SHW customized, hold my hash browns with the SHW logo. And man, it's just very cool. And then immediately, as soon as the show's over, they run out there to set up a merch table, sell out of what they brought, sell the shirts off their backs. Literally. And it was insane. Here's the thing. Because it was such a surprise, they weren't out there selling merch before the show or during intermission or anything like they normally would. Yet they still made out like bandits in the short amount of time after the show. They're mercenaries, I tell you.
Yes.
And which, by the way, they are doing the seminar on how to be mercenaries. So you need to hit up Huck or Hanson and sign up for that, because there are limited spots available. Oh my gosh, if you can learn just a tenth of what they know on how to make money on merchandise, dude.
But hey, like we said, and we weren't lying at the beginning of this episode when we said it was a roller coaster of emotions throughout the night. And there was the good, there was the bad, there was the ugly, there was the tearful. I mean, there was just everything you could think of all in one show. And we're just going to move right along to SHW52, July 7th, and just keep this train rolling on our final stop to the Rumblejack, the 5th annual Rumblejack coming up in August. And then just a couple months after that.
This next show, we will be crowning that Jake St. Legacy champion.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Absolutely.
All right. So we've got Kenway versus Chip for that's a match. That's a match.
Yeah. So we'll obviously do an in-depth preview to the next show here in the next couple coming weeks. But that's a match right there. We've already seen it happen once. It went to a 15-minute time limit draw, and I have to be careful how I phrase it. It went to a time limit draw. Kenway did not take Chip Day to the limit.
As we were corrected.
Or to his limit, rather. He took him to the time limit.
Time limit.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I don't want to have to be corrected again on that, because it's one thing to say it across Zoom, but when they're sitting there next to you and looking at you and saying, you said this and I didn't like it. And I'm thinking, wait, what did I say? Wait, hang on.
Charged.
Telling you, it had us all thinking about what we've done to or said.
Right. Every word.
So Chip, my apologies, and it won't happen again. But
much respect.
Yeah. So I don't know. Again, you mentioned at the top of the show, at the pre-show last month, we had the unexpected surprise of Chip Day joining us on commentary, probably to let us know what we had been saying incorrectly, but also just to kind of give his opinion, his thoughts on the Kenway, on the upcoming show and various things. We kind of jokingly dubbed this, it's kind of like, we'll call it Talking Chip, like there's Talking Smack or whatever you want to say. Talking Chip. And so I don't know if this becomes an ongoing thing at the pre-shows, I'm cool with that. I think it was kind of fun. So
either way, we did say once he got to the finals versus Kenway, Bryce, whoever, that he would have to come back on next month and talk about it. So he's going to be there regardless.
So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. And like you said, we can reach out to Kenway, perhaps have him on an episode of the podcast here. And then, could you imagine if we get him on and then we have the pre-show and Chip gets in our ear about that? Who knows what's going to happen? But it's like you guys said, it's got to be, it's only fair. We've heard from Chip. Let's hear from Kenway, and then maybe Chip can have a rebuttal if he wants at the pre-show, and we'll see what happens.
Imagine a live promo like the one he recorded.
No. Well, here's the thing to think about too, is that when they had that one-on-one match a couple months ago that went to the 15-minute time limit draw, this is the finals of the JTS tournament. There's not going to be a time limit here. There's going to be a winner. There's got to be a winner to crown the inaugural Legacy champion. So who knows how long this could go. But it's going to be good. It's going to be good. We already know about that match. We already know about Cyrus and Exotic Youth and that 6-man tag. Who will he pick for his partners? And then I'm sure many more matches to be announced in the coming weeks that we will let you guys know about. But, it's going to be good. If it's anything like this past show, then buckle up and do not miss it. Be there live. You're not going to want to miss it, folks. I'm telling you, if you're missing these shows live, what are you thinking? What are you doing? What are you doing?
If you're not there on show day, where are you?
Come on.
One place to be.
Just
one.
Yeah. Anyways, that's all I got, guys.
Yeah.
No, I'm good.
That's all we need.
That's going to wrap it up here for this episode. SHW51 was incredible. Whenever it drops on IWTV, do yourself a favor and check it out and see what you missed. Get all caught up and prepare yourselves for SHW52. But like I said earlier, next week we'll be joined by none other than the loudest mouth in the South, the Mac of all trades, the one and only AC Mac will be our guest. We cannot wait to talk to him one more time right here on the podcast. But until we see you then, this has been
SHW.
This is our wrestling.